Oh man. All right. So here we are. Give it a couple of minutes here. You get everybody in and everybody's situated and Bibles and pens open. We're gonna finish Samuel tonight. Um, this should be an interesting show. This is Bible study. For those of you that have not been to this channel, that have no clue what this is about, you need to understand something about this book. It means what it says. You're not going to get around it. You're not going to be able to make excuses. There's not going to be any excuses on those days. On that day when you're standing in front of Jesus and he looks you in the face and he asks you, why didn't you believe in me? And you're just like, oh, I did. And he's like, yeah, but you still kept sinning. So you didn't. And that's the kicker there. And you just want to make sure you're prepared for that. And that's what we're here to do, is to prepare you so you can be successful and so you can be effective and so you can store up for yourself treasures in heaven, because that's what it's about. The Bible says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So all this being said, the verse going across the very bottom of the screen, the little ticker down there, John 8:34, Jesus answered them, verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever commits sin is the servant of sin. Period. It ends in a period. Jesus meant exactly what he said. 2 verses later, he said, if you knew the truth would make you free. Free from what? Free from serving sin. If you still sin, then you're still a servant of sin. Jesus said so. He ended it with a period. And the only question that can be asked at this point, right, when you show somebody that, is, does Jesus lie? Does he lie? The answer is no. But you ask them that question because when you show them that verse and you say, does Jesus lie? They get, what up, Shirley? They get, and Brunette, everybody that's watching, when they get put in that position and you say, does Jesus lie? And you show them John 8:34, they have 2 choices. One, and especially you should have already asked, do you sin? And then, of course, you already know the answer. Of course they do. So then they're going to be like, yeah, doesn't everybody? No, not everybody. And then you show them John 8:34 and then you ask, does Jesus lie? They're in a position because they thought they believed their whole life. They've been going to the heathen buildings. They've been trying to be the best they can be. And you put them in a position and ask, does Jesus lie? If they say no, Jesus doesn't lie, then they have to admit that sin is what they serve. If they say yes, Jesus is a liar, then they're calling Jesus a liar and you already got him anyway. There is no middle ground where you get to still sin and be saved. You cannot have both. They don't go together. I don't care who you are. And it's very, 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 very select few people that will humble themselves and actually accept the book. So it's been a long couple of days, man. If you guys only knew what I was dealing with on Facebook. Whew. We got a new guy. I can't say he's necessarily brand new. Like, I've been dealing with him for a few months. Got a new guy who hit the ground running. And I'm in awe at so much hatred in this group of people. So much hatred. More than on YouTube in most cases. More than on YouTube. And it's just sad to see. Because it's just a Bible study, man. It's just the Bible. And people hate it so much. It's just the Bible. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. If you still sin, you're still of the devil. If you still sin, you're the servant of sin. What was I going to here? No. Yes. John 15. And to everybody that shows up here just to talk shit and treat me like shit, okay, fine. Fine. You go ahead, run your mouth all you want. You guys can all serve sin until the day you die. That's fine. That's your choice. Right? Right here. If the world hate you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. I've been relying on this verse the last couple of days and more. Really, I've been leaning on this verse like y'all lean on your legs for the last 4 years of my life. If you were of the world would love his own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Hates you. Hates you. If you're a real believer, the world will hate you. They will hate you. If I could just flip my screen and show you guys the comment like in the channel dashboard. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. And all these people that treat us so shitty are all the same people that claim they believe in Jesus. We had one guy, he's military. He went and fought for this country to protect the rights to freedom of speech, and freedom of religion, and to propagate your faith. He went to fight for this country and possibly die for it to protect those rights, and then treats me like absolute dog shit for showing him Bible verses. It's sad. It's a disappointment. It's just crazy, man. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you didn't know about that verse, you do now. Write it down. And when you do your jobs, people shit on you, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. It's hard sometimes not to, but don't feel bad. There's no need for you to. So we're going to finish up Samuel. We left off at chapter 20. I don't know if we read chapter 20. I think we'll just read it again because we're getting into where David comes into play. Hang on a second. Okay. We're getting right into where David comes into play. We're actually going to knock out one of the really hard topics tonight. And what's cool is we actually did go through this the other night. So anybody that was watching with the Jake Hates Jesus guy, when we did the show and Jake Hates Jesus showed up in the comments, we actually covered this that night. This is what it is. 1 Samuel chapter 20. Hope you guys all got your Bibles open, pens ready to go. Pay attention. Read along. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1. And David fled from Naoth and Ramah and came and said before Jonathan. Oh, yeah, that's right, because he went through all the shit with Jonathan. And they set it up, remember? Okay, jog your memory here. And they set it up so that Jonathan would be, or so that David was hiding out in the field. And he sent the archer. You know, Jonathan was going to go shoot an arrow and send one of his servants to go fetch the arrow. And depending on where he shot it, David would know. David would know whether Saul was trying to kill him or not. So this is where we're at. And David fled from Naoth and Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? And he said unto him, God forbid, thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will do nothing, either great or small, but that he will show it me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. So David told Jonathan, hey, your dad wants to kill me. And Jonathan was just not believing it. He's like, there's no way. That can't be the truth. And what's funny is when we're like, as believers, when we tell unbelievers, hey, your family's going to hate you for this, they're like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And then boom, then it happens. And they're like, holy shit. So I like it. I like seeing it in it. And David sware moreover and said, thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. And he saith, let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly as the Lord liveth, as thy soul liveth, there is but a step between me and death. Then Jonathan said unto David, whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will do it for thee. And David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. If thy father at all miss me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me, that he might run to Bethlehem his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he say thus, it is well, thy servant shall have peace. But if he be very wroth, then be sure that evil is determined by him. So David's like, hey, if your dad actually misses me, then you can be at peace. But if he's mad, then you know I'm not lying to you. And what's cool, I mean, if you really look at this story, David just told Jonathan to lie to his dad. He said, lie to him. Tell him I'm in Bethlehem. Verse 8. Therefore, thou shalt deal kindly with thy servant, for thou hast brought thy servant into a covenant of the Lord with thee. Notwithstanding, if there be in me iniquity, slay me thyself. For why shouldest thou bring me to my father? And I find this unique because David's sitting here with Jonathan, and he's like, look, dude, if there's sin in me, slay me yourself. For why shouldest thou bring me to thy father? And Jonathan said, Far be it from me, for I knew certainly that evil were determined. For if I knew certainly that evil were determined by my father to come upon thee, then would not I tell it thee. Then said David to Jonathan, Who shall tell me, or what, if thy father answereth thee roughly? I want to do something. Boop, boop, boop. First Samuel. Okay. Verse 9, 20 verse. Okay. All right. Just if there's anything I can give you, I want to be able to give it to you. All right. So 20 verse 9, and Jonathan said, Far be it from me. If I knew certainly that evil were determined by my father to come upon thee, then would not I tell it thee? Then said David to Jonathan, Who shall tell me, or what, if thy father answereth thee roughly? And Jonathan said unto David, Come, and let us go out into the field. And they went out, both of them, into the field. And Jonathan said unto David, O Lord God of Israel, when I have sounded my father about tomorrow any time, or the third day, and behold, if there be good toward David, and I then send not unto thee, and show it thee, the Lord do so, and much more to Jonathan. But if it please my father to do thee evil, then I will show it thee, and send thee away, that thou mayest go in peace. And the Lord be with thee, as he hath been with my father. And thou shalt not only, while yet I live, show me the kindness of the Lord, that I die not, but also thou shalt not cut off thy kindness from my house forever. No, not when the Lord hath cut off the enemies of David, every one from the face of the earth. So Jonathan makes a deal with David. I'm going to do this for you and protect you. If I do this, you got to promise me that you'll never kill me under any circumstance. My family's always going to be good in your eyes. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, Let the Lord even require it at the hand of David's enemies. And Jonathan caused David to swear again, because he loved him. For he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to David, Tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy sweat will be empty. And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then thou shalt go down quickly, and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself when the business was in hand, and shalt remain by the stone Ezel. And I will shoot 3 arrows on the side thereof, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send a lad, saying, Go find out the arrows. If I expressly say unto the lad, Behold, the arrows are on this side of thee, take them, then come thou, for there is peace to thee, and no hurt, as the Lord liveth. But if I say thus unto the young man, Behold, the arrows are beyond thee, go thy way, for the Lord hath sent thee away. As touching the matter which thou and I have spoken of, behold, the Lord between thee and me forever. The Lord be between me and thee forever. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, and the king sat down to eat meat, and the king sat him down to eat meat, and the king sat upon his seat, as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall, and Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought, Something hath befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is just not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the 2nd day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. And he said, Let me go, I pray thee, for our family hath a sacrifice in the city, and my brother, he hath commanded me to be there. And now, if I have found favor in thine eyes, let me get away, I pray thee, and see my brethren. Therefore he cometh not unto the king's table. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said unto him, Thou son of the perverse, rebellious woman, do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and unto the confusion of thy mother's nakedness? This is where Saul gets pissed, because Jonathan chose David. Jonathan said, Fuck my flesh and blood. David's my best friend. That's who I'm going to go. That's who I'm going to listen to. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said unto him, Thou son of the perverse, rebellious woman, do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and unto the confusion of thy mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Therefore, now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die. And Jonathan answered Saul his father, and said unto him, Wherefore shall he be slain? What has he done? And Saul cast a javelin at him to smite him, whereby Jonathan knew that it was determined of his father to slay David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did eat no meat the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had done him shame. And it came to pass in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a little lad with him. And he said unto his lad, Run, find out now the arrows which I shoot. And as he ran, he shot an arrow behind him. And when the lad was come to the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan cried after the lad and said, Is not the arrow beyond thee? And Jonathan cried after the lad, Make speed, haste, stay not. And Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the lad knew not anything, only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan gave his artillery unto his lad, and said unto him, Go, carry them to the city. And as soon as the lad was gone, David arose out of the place towards the south, and fell on his face to the ground, and bowed himself 3 times. And they kissed one another, and wept with one another, until David exceeded. And Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, for as much as we have sworn, both of us, in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord be between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. 1 Samuel chapter 21. Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. And Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, The king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, Let no man know anything of the business whereabout I sent thee, and what I have commanded thee, and I have appointed my servants to such and such a place. Now therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in mine hand, or what there is present. And the priest answered David and said, There is no common bread under mine hand, but there is hallowed bread, if the young men have kept themselves at least from women. And David answered the priest and said unto him, Of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in a vessel. So the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before the Lord to be hot bread in the day when it was taken away. So here's where David takes showbread. He had no business taking showbread. According to the law, he was not supposed to do that. But David had the faith, and he's like, Look, dude, I'm hungry. David trusted God. It didn't matter. He didn't wash his hands. He didn't have none of that, none of the jargon bullshit of what you hear from the hypocrites. David just had faith. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chiefest of the herdmen that belonged to Saul. And David said unto Ahimelech, And is there not here under thine hand spear or sword? Okay. And David said unto Ahimelech, And is there not here under thine hand? And David said unto Ahimelech, And is there not here under thine hand spear or sword? For I have neither brought my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. And the priest said, The sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom thou slewest in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If thou wilt take that, take it. And there is no other save that here. And David said, There is none like that, give it me. So it was, essentially it was David's sword anyway, but because he took it from Goliath, he took his sword. And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to Achish the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said unto him, Is not this David the king of the land? Did they not sing one to another of him in dances, saying, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Remember that when the girls were singing about them? Saul got all mad because they thought of David much higher. And David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. And he changed his behavior before them and feigned himself mad in their hands and scrabbled on the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Then said Achish unto his servants, Lo, you see the man is mad. Wherefore then have you brought him to me? Have I need of a madman? If I have I need of madmen, that you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? David laid up these words. I gotta close this. All right. Oh, that's not even gonna help it, I don't think. All right. 1 Samuel 21:12. And David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. And he changed his behavior before them and feigned himself mad in their hands. Okay, so David faked being a psycho and scrabbled on the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Then said Achish unto his servants, Lo, you see the man is mad. Wherefore then have you brought him to me? Have I need of madmen that you have brought this fellow to play a madman in my presence? Shall his fellow come into my house? Shall this fellow? David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. Oof. It's good. And David went thence to Mizpah of Moab. And he said unto the king of Moab, Let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you till I know what God will do for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hold. And the prophet Gad said unto David, Abide not in the hold, depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came into the forest of Hereth. When Saul heard that David was discovered and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. Then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, Hear now, you Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, that all of you have conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse? There is none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me my son hath stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait, as at this day. So this is Saul complaining to everybody that nobody told him about David running, and nobody, and Jonathan kept it from him. And then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, to the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were at Nob, and they came all of them to the king. And Saul said, Hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said unto him, Why have you conspired against me, that thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me, to lie in wait as at this day? And Ahimelech answered the king and said, And who is so faithful among all thy servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thine house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me, let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father, for thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. So, it just is Ahimelech's looking at Saul like, you want to come to me and ask why I did all this for him, yet he's the most favored servant in your entire house. He's your son-in-law. Why would I not do this for him? And the king said, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled, and did not show it to me. But the servants of a king the servants of the kings would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priest of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, Turn thou and fall upon the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priest, and slew on that day 85 persons that did wear a linen ephod. So Doeg killed all the priests of the Lord. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings, and oxen and asses, and sheep with the edge of the sword. What up, Jason? And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priests. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. Abide thou with me, fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life. But with me thou shalt be in safeguard. Whew. That's crazy. 1 Samuel 23. Then they told David, saying, Behold, the Philistines fight against Keilah, and they rob the threshing floors. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go and smite these Philistines? And the Lord said unto David, Go and smite the Philistines, and save Keilah. Keilah. And David's men said unto him, Behold, we be afraid here in Judah. How much more than if we come to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? Then David inquired of the Lord yet again. And the Lord answered him and said, Arise, go down to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into thine hand. So David and his men went to Keilah and fought with the Philistines, and brought away their cattle, and smote them with a great slaughter. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. And it came to pass, when Abiathar the son of Ahimelech fled to David to Keilah, that he came down with an ephod in his hand. And it was told Saul that David was come to Keilah. And Saul said, God hath delivered him into my hand, for he is shut in by entering into a town that hath gates and bars. And Saul called all the people together to war, to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. And David knew that Saul secretly practiced mischief against him. And he said to Abiathar the priest, Bring hither the ephod. Then said David, O Lord God of Israel, thy servant hath certainly heard that Saul seeketh to come to Keilah to destroy the city for my sake. Will the men of Keilah deliver me up into his hand? Will Saul come down as thy servant hath heard? O Lord God of Israel, I beseech thee, tell thy servant. And the Lord said, He will come down. Then said David, Will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? And the Lord said, They will deliver thee up. Then David and his men, which were about 600, arose and departed out of Keilah, and went whithersoever they could go. And it was told Saul that David was escaped from Keilah, and he forbade to go forth. And David abode in the wilderness in strongholds, and remained in a mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hand. And David saw that Saul was come out to seek his life, and David was in the wilderness of Ziph in a wood. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David into the wood, and strengthened his hand in God. And he said unto him, Fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee, and thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee, and that also Saul my father knoweth. And they two made a covenant before the Lord, and David abode in the wood, and Jonathan went to his house. It's the second covenant that David made with Jonathan. Then came up the Ziphites to Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself with us in strongholds in the wood, in the hill of Keilah, which is on the south side of Jeshimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of thy soul to come down, and our part shall be to deliver him into the king's hand. And Saul said, Blessed be ye of the Lord, for you have compassion on me. Go, I pray you, prepare yet. I'm going to make sure my brain's with it here. Then came up the Ziphites to Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself with us in strongholds in the wood, in the hill of Keilah, which is on the south of Jeshimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of thy soul to come down, and our part shall be to deliver him unto the king's hand. And Saul said, Blessed be ye of the Lord, for you've had compassion on me. So these guys are like, David's with us. He's in our little village. We'll bring him to you. Go, I pray you, prepare yet, and know and see his place where his haunt is, and who hath seen him there. For it is told me that he dealeth very subtly. See therefore, and take knowledge of all the lurking places where he hideth himself, and come you again to me with the certainty, and I will go with you, and it shall come to pass, if he be in the land, that I will search him out throughout all the thousands of Judah. And they arose and went to Ziph before Saul. But David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, in the plain of the south of Jeshimon. Saul also and his men went to seek him, and they told David, wherefore he came down into a rock. Saul also and his men went to seek him, and they told David, wherefore he came down into a rock and abode in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. And Saul went on this side of the mountain, and David and his men on that side of the mountain. And David made haste to get away for fear of Saul. For Saul and his men compassed David and his men round about to take them. But there came a messenger unto Saul, saying, Haste thee and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Wherefore Saul returned from pursuing after David, and went against the Philistines. Therefore they called that place Selah Hama Lekoth. That's it. Selah Amalekoth. Selah Amalekoth. I like it. It's pretty. Selah Amalekoth. And David went up from thence and dwelt in strongholds at En-gedi. It's kind of neat though, right? When David needed to get away, like Saul's focused so much on killing David, he just left everything open. And then the Philistines show up right when David needs him to. And it came to pass, when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel, and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way where was a cave, and Saul sent in to cover his feet, and David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. Okay. And it came to pass, when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel, and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And when he came to the sheepcotes, by the way there was a cave, and Saul went in to cover his feet. Okay, Saul went in to cover his feet, and David and his men remained on the sides of the cave. And the men of David said unto him, Behold, the day of the which the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. So instead of killing Saul, David snuck into the cave while Saul wasn't paying attention, cut a piece off of his robe. And he said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing that he is anointed of the Lord. This is the honorable part. This is the part where you see that heart, like that heart after God, Saul's trying to completely murder David in every aspect of the words, trying to take everything away from his life, his wife, everything. David's on the run. David has the chance to kill him back, and he doesn't. Instead, he cuts a little piece off his robe. It's good. That's good. That's humility. That's, trusting God. And he said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed his servants with these words, and suffered them not to rise against Saul. But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. David also arose afterward and went out of the cave, and cried after Saul, saying, My lord, the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth, and bowed himself. And David said to Saul, Wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, Behold, David seeketh thy heart? Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord had delivered thee today into mine hand in the cave, and some bade me to kill you, some bade me kill thee, but mine eye spared thee. And I said, I will not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, my father, see, yea, the skirt of thy robe in my hand, for in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe and killed thee not, know thou and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in mine hand, and I have not sinned against thee, yet thou huntest my soul to take it. This is David showing Saul his hypocrisy. Moreover, my father, see the skirt of thy robe in my hand, for in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe and killed thee not, know thou and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee, yet thou huntest my soul to take it. The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. So David tells God, you get even. My hand isn't going to do it. He said, God's going to get even for me, but I'm not going to do it. The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. As saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. After whom, actually I want to see something, 24, verse 13. Okay. As saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom doth he pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. The Lord therefore be judge, and judge between me and thee, and see, and plead my cause, and deliver me out of thine hand. And it came to pass, when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. And he said to David, Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. And thou hast showed this day how that thou hast dealt well with me, for as much as when the Lord had delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Wherefore the Lord rewardeth thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now, behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. Swear now therefore unto me by the Lord that thou wilt not cut off my seed after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home, but David and his men get them up unto the hold. So Saul admits, you're going to be king, you're a better man than I am. Just cool. That was cool. That's the right thing to do. 1 Samuel 25, verse 1. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together. Oh, that's sad. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down into the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Maon, whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great. He had 3,000 sheep and 3,000 goats. Oh, Brunette, if you're still paying attention with the pen and paper, do this while you're doing your list. I don't remember how you're actually separating them out. Keep a column for prophets, keep a column for kings of Israel, and keep a column for kings of Judah. And then you'll have the ones who sinned and the ones who didn't, or just like write an S next to the ones who fucked it up. Whatever. If you really want to get, if you can write fast and do the verses too next to them, that'd be cool. That'd be awesome. That'd be a lot of work done. Because I have to go back and redo all that. Anyway, so if you knocked it out, that would be awesome. 1 Samuel 25, verse 2. And there was a man in Maon, whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great. And he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. And Samuel would have been a prophet. Samuel would have been one of the prophets. And now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding, and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men, And David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall you say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. David sent out 10 young men, and David sent unto the young men. Okay. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now the shepherds which were with us. Wait, this is. I want to make sure this is the same thing. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail. And I know the story because I think David ends up with Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance, but the man was churlish and evil in his doings. Yes, this is that story. I just want to make sure it was that story. And he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall you say to him that live in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now the shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore, let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and to thy son David. So David didn't mess up his people. David didn't mess up his shepherds. So he's like, here, I need whatever you can spare. If you can spare that, I could have just took it all, and I didn't. And he sent peace to him and was like, look, that's like mob tactic right there. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? So David's young men turned their way and went again, and came and told him all those sayings. And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us both by night and day, all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore, know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. This is kind of neat because we deal with this in unbelievers all the time. They're just so nasty, you can't even talk to them. You ask them, can you, like, would you do a Bible study? And they just get they won't do it. They just nasty. For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep ready dressed and 5 measures of parched corn and 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said unto her servants, Go on before me. Behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him, and he hath requited me evil for good. So, and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave all that pertain to him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall. So he said, David's telling her, like, listen, if I leave, right there, those were David's words to her. So, and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off her ass, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and fell at his feet, and said, Upon me, my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be, and let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not my lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my lord, as the Lord liveth, as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies, and they that seek evil to my lord, be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my lord. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my lord a sure house, because my lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days. Again, and she's telling David, evil has not been found in thee all thy days. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee and to seek thy soul, but the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God, and the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out as out of the middle of a sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he hath spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, that this shall be no grief unto thee, nor offense of heart unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid. And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with mine own hand. For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hadst hasted and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. David was going there to kill everybody. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after, that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned to the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. Yes. And when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they spake unto her, saying, David sent us unto thee to take thee to him to wife. And she arose and bowed herself on her face to the earth, and said, Behold, let thy handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. And Abigail hasted and arose and rode upon an ass with 5 damsels of hers that went after her. And she went after the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal his daughter, David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Gilim. Whole lot of wife swapping going on here. 1 Samuel 26, verse 1. And the Ziphites came unto Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon? So the Ziphites, the ones that were going to set David up to begin with. And the Ziphites came unto Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon? Then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul pitched in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon by the way. But David abode in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies, and understood that Saul was come in very deed, And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. And David held the place where Saul lay. There it is. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. Excuse me. And David beheld the place where Saul lay. And Abner, the son of Ner, the captain of his host, and Saul lay in the trench. And the people pitched round about him. Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother to Joab, saying, Who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. But Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God hath delivered thine enemy into thy hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time. Basically, you let me do this now, he won't need another. I won't need to hit him again. And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? We know that verse from Corinthians, right? Any man that destroys the temple, him will God destroy. You can't. The worst thing you can do is offend or piss off or hurt a real believer. Just no bueno. And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said, Furthermore, as the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. But I pray thee, take thou now the spear that is at his bolster and the cruse of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they gat them away. And no man saw it, nor knew it, neither awakened, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. Then David went over to the other side and stood at the top of the hill far off, a great space being between them. And David cried to the people and to Abner the son of Ner, saying, Answerest thou not, Abner? Then Abner answered and said, Who art thou that criest to the king? And David said to Abner, Art not thou a valiant man? And who is like to thee in Israel? Wherefore then hast thou not kept thy lord the king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king thy lord. So Abner is supposed to be the captain over everything, and David managed to slip through and steal the spear and the cruse of water. And Abner, being the captain, failed to catch him. That'll get you killed. That would get you killed back then. And David said to Abner, Art thou not a valiant man? And who is like to thee in Israel? Wherefore then hast thou not kept the Lord thy king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king thy lord. And this thing is not good that thou hast done. As the Lord liveth, you are worthy to die, because you have not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the cruse of water that was at his bolster. And Saul knew David's voice, and said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And David said, It is my voice, O my lord king. And he said, Wherefore doth my lord thus pursue after his servant? For what have I done? Or what evil is in my hand? Now therefore, I pray thee, let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord have stirred thee up against me, let him accept an offering. But if they be the children of men, cursed be they before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go, serve other gods. Now therefore, let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord, for the king of Israel is come out to seek a flea, and when one doth hunt a partridge, as when one doth hunt a partridge in the mountains. David's basically comparing himself to a flea. He's looking at Saul like, why are you so worried about me, dude? Worry about you. Then said Saul, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will no more do thee harm, because my soul was precious in thine eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool and have erred exceedingly. So there you go. There's your first king doing what? Sinning. And David answered and said, Behold, the king's spear and let one of the young men come over and fetch it. The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I would not stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. David could have killed him in the trench. David could have killed him in the cave. He didn't kill him at all, and he could have. And he didn't. And Saul hated him anyway. And behold, as thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set. This is tongue twister sometimes. And behold, as thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt both do great things, and also shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Saul just can't help but wanting to kill David. 1 Samuel chapter 27. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines, and Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in the coast of Israel. So shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose, and as he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maok, king of Gath, and David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep, and the oxen, and the asses, and the camels, and the apparel, and returned, and came to Achish. And Achish says, Whither have you made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of Jerahmeelites. Jerahmeelites, whatever. It's like Jeremiah. Jerahmeelites. There we go. And Achish says, Whither have you made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him, therefore he shall be my servant forever. I got to reread this. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish says, Whither have you made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. Oh. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David. So David lied to Achish. Achish says, Where'd you build a road today? And he said, Oh, over here, over here. He didn't tell Achish that they went and killed a whole bunch of people. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him, therefore he shall be my servant forever. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore I will make thee keeper of mine head forever. Where's my lighter? Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. God just, what did Saul say? He said he sinned. God doesn't hear sinners. Keep trying to tell everybody that. They just don't listen. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? So Saul had, killed everybody that had familiar spirits, wizards, all the fucking creepy, weird witchcraft people. He killed them all. So he had to disguise himself and go to this lady and ask her. Now, this is hypocrisy. Saul kills all the fucking wizards and the witches and all that, kills them all, and then wants to go use one. Hypocrisy. Just in case you guys haven't noticed the little hints towards these things in here. Full-blown hypocrite. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest that what Saul had done, how he had cut off those that have familiar spirits and wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth. And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, What hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. Samuel told her. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel. And he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me. God is departed from me, and answereth me no more. There it is. Neither by prophets, nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. Because thou obeyest, there it is, boom, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing even unto thee this day. Right there. This is what happens. This is what happens. You get cut off because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord. You don't want to go by the instructions? Okay, bye. Because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth, and was sore afraid, because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth, and was sore afraid, because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. He got a lot of bad news when he brought up Samuel. And let's That's what believers do. And the woman came unto Saul and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thine handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in thine hands, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou spakest unto me. Now therefore, I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. But he refused, and said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. Evelyn, if somebody still sins, they're not a Christian. Take a pause here for a second and put this in perspective for you. Muslims, they still sin. They pray 5 times a day. They repent 100 times a day, right? They try their best to live their best life. Most 99% of them, right? They're just like people who say they believe in Jesus. They do the sin, repent, repeat shit. The fake Christians, they do the sin, repent, repeat shit. Buddhists do the sin, repent, repeat shit. Fake Jews do the sin, repent, repeat shit. Sin, repent, repeat is what the whole world does. So are the Muslims saved by trying to be their best? Are the Muslims saved by repenting? Are the Muslims saved too by saying sorry to God every time they serve the devil? Does that make them saved? No, it does not. Just like when you say, I'm sorry, Jesus, I fucking sinned again, right? That's not salvation. That's serving the devil. You're not saying sorry for what you did. You're saying sorry because you chose to serve the devil. He that committeth sin is of the devil. It's black and white. It is crystal clear. It is the easiest possible thing you could ever be told. It's the easiest thing to understand. It's so simple. And it's scary as hell. He that committeth sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. If a Muslim sins and repents, and then sins again, and then repents again, and then sins again, and then repents again, and somebody who claims to be a Christian sins and then repents, and then sins again, and then repents again, and then sins again, and then repents again, which one's legit? Neither of them. They're both sinners. They're both of the devil. It does. It means exactly what it says. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a dick. My last 2 days, this has been what it's been. It's been this verse 1,000 times with a bunch of people that can't just read it's black and they just refuse to accept it. And I hope you're not one of those, but at the end of the day, the verse means what it says. So if somebody says they're a Christian and they still sin, all you got to do is ask them, do you still sin? All you got to do is listen to them talk. You'll hear them. It's disgusting. If they still sin, they're not Christians. They're servants of the devil who call themselves Christians. Just like the Muslims are not of God. They are servants of the devil who call themselves Muslims. Fake Jews. They're not real Jews. They're just servants of the devil who call themselves Jews. If you sin, you're of the devil. That's it. It's so simple, so easy. Real believers can't sin. Jesus reconciled all things for all men, but you have to believe it. You have to trust him in those things. You're never going to fucking change. I don't care who you are. You're not going to change. You might stop doing certain things. You might stop doing certain things, but then you'll just do other things you call sin. This is what this cycle is, Evelyn. I want to show you this. Take a brief minute and just show you this. It's a very, very serious set of verses. It's only 3 verses. It's Matthew 12, 43 through 45. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, that's when somebody sins. He walketh through dry places and seeketh rest and finds none. Then he saith, I will return to my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he finds it empty, swept, and garnished. So the evil spirit leaves when somebody sins. They feel all guilty. So they clean themselves out. I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit stealing. And that wicked spirit comes back and finds them all cleaned up, and they've got their 30-day chip, and they're going to the heathen buildings again. Then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. So somebody who says they're a believer in Jesus, but they still sin, but they're like, oh, Jesus took away my alcoholism. Jesus took away cigarettes. Jesus, no, no, and no. Jesus had nothing to do with that. And you may have given up those things, but if you still sin somewhere else, then you're just falling to one of the other wicked spirits. It's that cycle. This is that cycle. This is the cycle of sin, repent, repeat right here. When an unclean spirit has gone out of a man, he walks through dry places seeking rest and finds none. Then he saith, I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he finds it empty, swept, and garnished. Then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. Why? Because they become bitter on top of it. They're like, they start looking in their pride. They quit smoking. They quit drinking. They cleaned up their lives. They paid all their fines. They did all the shit they were supposed to do. Now they're upstanding members in society, but they still sin. So now when you show them that, hey, you're of the devil because you still sin, they're never going to believe that because they no longer see themselves as the piece of shit they were. Even though they are. They just keep, it's just 7 different spirits. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. I'm not trying to be hard on you guys, but at the same point, there's no other way to be. Because it's like a lot of people just don't seem to register just how fucking serious this is. Everybody that sins is of the devil. To sin, you have to have the knowledge of good and evil. So everybody that has the knowledge of good and evil, they're of the devil. Now, we all know touching fire is hot, you're going to get burned. We know killing somebody is stupid, you're going to go to jail, you're going to hurt a lot of people, don't do it. It's not a good versus evil thing, it's a fucking common sense thing. So I'm not trying to be hard on you, Evelyn. I just want you to understand, just because somebody says they're a Christian, don't ever let them claim something they're not. And if they still sin, they are not. It is offensive to me and to everybody else in here that knows the truth. It's sickening. It is disgusting. And Jesus warned about it. Wolves in sheep's clothing. They call themselves Christians. They label themselves all these different things. They're no different than Muslims. The Muslims are no different than them. You know, I listened to Raging Atheist last night tell everybody how they need to change. Everybody's going to be an atheist now? It's disgusting. GG. Sorry, I just had a break in between chapters. It's a very touchy subject for me this last couple of days after. I care about you, Evelyn. I really fucking do. I wouldn't be up here. I would not be up here. I would not be doing this. I fucking love Nick, but he spits in my face. He treats me like dog shit. Never gave me the time of day. Will not pick up the Bible. Will not acknowledge the verses. Will not acknowledge that because he still sins, he's of the devil. He flat fucking refuses. It breaks my heart. But there's not shit I can do about it. Because he chooses it. GG. There's got to be somebody awake. Okay. Please. It breaks my heart. But it makes me sick when people call other people Christians. They're not. Good night, Jason. Get some sleep, man. Tomorrow's another day. 1 Samuel chapter 29. Now the Philistines gathered together all their armies to Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by the hundreds and by thousands. But David and his men passed on in the reward with hatchets. Then said the princes of the Philistines, What do these Hebrews here? And Achish said unto the prince of the Philistines, Is not this David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which hath been with me these days or these years? And I have found no fault in him since he fell unto me this day. And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him. And the princes of the Philistines said to him, Make this fellow return, that he may go again to his place which thou hast appointed him, and let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself unto his master, should it not be with the heads of these men? So David was going to go down with the Philistines to go to war, and The Philistines were like, no, don't bring him with us, because what if he turns on us to make peace with Saul? Would have been a really bad day for the Philistines. Is not this David, of whom they sang one to another in dances, saying, Saul slew his thousands and David his 10,000s? Then Achish called David and said unto him, Surely as the Lord liveth, thou hast been upright, and thy going out and thy coming in with me in the host is good in my sight. For I have not found evil in thee since the day of thy coming unto me this day. Nevertheless, the Lord's favor thee not. Wherefore, now return and go in peace, that thou displease not the lords of the Philistines. And David said unto Achish, But what have I done? And what hast thou found in thy servant, so long as I have been with thee unto this day, that I may not go fight against the enemies of my lord with the king? And Achish answered and said to David, I know that thou art good in my sight, as an angel of God. Notwithstanding, the princes of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us to battle. Wherefore now rise up early in the morning with thy master's servants that are come with thee, and as soon as you be up early in the morning and have light, depart. So David and his men rose up early to depart in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went up to Jezreel. 1 Samuel chapter 30. And it came to pass, when David and his men were come to Ziklag on a third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south, and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire. David and his men were come to Ziklag on a third day. The Amalekites invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captives. Ziklag was David's, though. And had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away, and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept, until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives were taken captives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. Everybody wanted to blame David. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought hither the ephod to David. And David inquired at the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. And David went, he and the 600 men that were with him, and came to the brook Besor, where those that were left behind stayed. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 abode behind, which were so faint that they could not go over the brook Besor. And they found an Egyptian in the field, and brought him to David. They found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David, and gave him bread, and he did eat, and they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him, for he had eaten no bread nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. And David said unto him, To whom belongest thou, and whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me because 3 days agone I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of the Cherethites, and upon the coast which belongeth to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, Canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, Swear unto me by God that thou wilt neither kill me, nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. And when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon all the face of the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil they had taken out of the land of the Philistines and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from the twilight even unto the evening of the next day, and there escaped not a man of them, save 400 young men which rode upon camels and fled. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives. And there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil, nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. David took all the flocks and the herds, which they drave before those other cattle, and said, This is David's spoil. And David came to the 200 men, which were so faint they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Besor, And they went forth to meet David and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them. Then answered all the wicked men of the men of Belial, of those that went with David, and said, because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoil that we have recovered, save to every man his wife and children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then said David, you should not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord hath given us, who hath preserved us, and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. For who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall part alike. And it was so much from that day forward that he made it a statute, and an ordinance for Israel unto this day. So the other people were like, let's not give them anything because they didn't go with. They're children of Belial. And David's like, no, they get equal everything. And when David came to Ziklag, he sent the spoil unto the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, behold, a present for you of the spoil of the enemies of the Lord, to them which were in Bethel, and to them which were in south of Ramoth, and to them which were in Jatir, and to them which were in Aor, and to them which were in Siphmoth, and to them which were at Eshtemoa, and to them which were in Rashal, and to them which were in the cities of the Jerahmeelites. That word just messes my tongue. I don't know why it does that. I really don't. Brunette, can you see me? Am I back? Hello? Knock, knock. Okay. And to them which were in Hormah, and to them which were in Chorashan, and to them which were in Atach, and to them which were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself, and it kicks me off every now and then for some reason, and to them which were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men were wont to haunt. Basically, they just want to hang out there. Ooh, I was getting scared there. I thought there was no more chapters. Oh, okay. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in the Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons. Remember, Saul was freaking out about these Philistine guys. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons. And the Philistines slew Jonathan. What? I forgot about that. Oh, that's sad. And the Philistine, that fucking sucks. Oh. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in the Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul. Hang on. That's it's weird. Like, even when I read it on my own, no matter how many times I read it, when these guys die, I cry. It just Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Then said Saul unto his armor bearer, draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor bearer, and all his men that same day together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side of Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa, and they cut off his head, and stripped off his armor, and sent unto the land of the Philistines round about, to publish it in the house of their idols and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, All the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Oh, that is aggravating. But I know I can just be done with this and I can keep reading. So that was the end of 1 Samuel. 2 Samuel's obviously next. And that will be, as early as humanly possible. At the latest, obviously, would be Saturday. So I do hope you guys enjoy doing this with me. I enjoy doing this with you very, very, very much so. If you've made it this far, if you haven't, I don't anticipate any of the what do you call it? Any of the fake believers sticking around for an entire Bible study. But at the end of it all, I really just, it's all on here, man. It's all on here. This goes in the playlist called Old Testament Read-Alongs. It's all there. Proverbs took like 15 hours and 50 videos, but I just took my time with it. This, it's all on here. The entire New Testament is on here. Most of the Old Testament is on here. We're just wrapping up these. 2 Samuel, and then we got Kings and Chronicles, and I'm excited. The playlist tab on the channel works. Yeah. It gets like, just wait, that's nothing. That's nothing. And I would really like to do 2 Samuel, let's see, on a straight through. I think that's what we will do. I'll do 2 Samuel on a straight through. But I'll make sure that it's planned and given plenty of advance notice. And I'll start it a little earlier. I'll probably start it at like 8:15 my time, 8:15. Tonight we started at 10:15 my time, so I'd probably start at 8:15 my time, and then just do a straight through. I think that's how I'll do 2 Samuel. So that's the best. That's really the best. Once you sit down and you just go straight through, that's the best, because that's when you get like the most into it. And it's like that with reading any book, but this one's just different. It's the Bible. So all that being said, I love y'all. I salute the brethren, the ones that are really doing it. Make sure you're effective. That's it. You want to be effective. What's the point in learning it if you're not going to be effective? Learn how to be effective. I don't know how else to put that. It just is what it is. James 5:20. I think that's what I'll wrap it up with. James chapter 5, verse 20. Let him know that he which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death and shall hide a multitude of sins. To convert somebody means they go from being a sinner to never sinning again. They go from being a sinner to being perfect. That's a conversion. If you're a sinner and then you say you believe and then you still sin, you were never converted. That's a false belief. That's why the Bible says, try the spirits, whether they are of God. Many false prophets are around in the world. False prophets are the ones that say they believe, they still sin, or some of them, they'll say they believe they can't sin, but they don't line up with the Bible. You got to know your shit. You don't get a choice. If you're going to do it and do it right, you got to know your shit and be effective. Just be yourself. Don't hide anything about yourself from anybody. There's no reason to. Don't hold back your tongue because you don't want to offend somebody. Because the minute 1 John 3:8 hits that table anyway, they're going to be pissed. 1 John 3:8 pisses off everybody. Doesn't matter who it is. Looking somebody in the face and saying, hey, sorry, you're of the devil and you're going to hell. There's just no nice way to do that. So don't be afraid, man. Just be yourself. Be yourself. Trust him in all things. Stir the pot. Oh, you know what? There's a verse. It's one of my favorite verses. I want to say it's in Luke 18. Could be. Maybe not. 12 verse 18, maybe. No. Where is it? It's in Luke. Let me see. 12:49. Okay, it's way down there. I think it was 12. Right here. Jesus' words himself. This isn't a feel-good thing. This isn't. Jesus says, I came not to bring peace, but a sword. A man's enemies are going to be they of his own house. That's the gospel. Those are Jesus' words. You can't be afraid of it. He said, I am come to send fire on the earth. And what will I if it be already kindled? The only way it's going to get kindled is for y'all to do your job and be effective. You're the only thing standing in between the people you love and them going to hell. They have no excuse as it is, but try. Give it your all, because he gave it for us. Love y'all. I salute the brethren. Enjoy your night. I will see you as soon as I can.